Okay, maybe I should be live. This is interesting. Anyway, I'm a little bit late today because I was watching YouTube videos, physics videos, and news videos. But I was watching one news video that I thought I'd share with you. It was pretty interesting. It was a unfortunate situation where a Russian plane had multiple bird strikes, but everything turned out okay. You know, the pilot was hailed a hero. You know, everybody was okay. But so they were interviewing people afterwards, and they interviewed this kid about what happened. And I made a comment. I said, "Well, it's you didn't need a translator for the sound of the bird strike." And the DW, the German YouTube, they gave me a heart and they highlighted my comment. So I want to share. I want to share what he said. So this is what he said here. If I can get it to go.
Just after takeoff, I heard a sound like
There was a deathly silence on the plane. Everyone was just...
That was pretty good if you ask me. Anyways, I like making my own jokes and laughing at them. Anyway, they liked the German video, liked my comment, and they gave me a heart and a highlight because I said no translation was needed for the sound of the birds striking the engines. It's an international sound effect, I guess. Anyway, so much for that. So yeah, I was watching YouTube videos, you know, some physics videos and stuff. Learning a little bit about some quantum physics and stuff. But we still have scientists believing the nonsense of evolutionism. And it's a shame. It's a shame how people can waste so much time on something that's worthless and useless. So instead of teaching kids real history, you know, sometimes history is boring, you know, sometimes it's interesting. And if you have a history teacher that knows how to make it interesting, then that's even better. So especially when it's relevant history. It's history about, you know, the people we are all related to, the people that we all came from, we're all related to. And everybody excuse me, everybody's genealogy goes back to Noah and his 3 sons and their 3 wives. We have Neanderthal DNA from the 3 wives. I mean, not the 3 wives, 2, maybe 1 or 2 of the wives. I think we have Neanderthal DNA from one of the wives, which is Sheb's wife. And we have Denisovan DNA from Japheth's wife, which, it could be either or both or something, I don't know. But it doesn't seem to be in the African genealogy or the African genome, the Neanderthal DNA. And it's also true that the male chromosome of Neanderthals is extinct. In other words, nobody is directly descended from a male Neanderthal having a male Neanderthal Y chromosome. Nobody living today. Probably because they all died in the global flood. But anyway, that's another thing. But that's history. That's fact. That's genetic evidence. Why don't you teach facts? Genetic. Along with actual known historical events, actual genealogies of people that we are all related to. And then you can also teach geology too, in line with known historical events. There was a global flood that buried everything that was living on land. We should expect to find samples of what was living on Earth at the time of the global flood, and we do. We find animals living at the time of the global flood and also after the global flood. We find mammoths, we find saber-toothed tigers, we find a whole bunch of, American wild dogs. We find a whole bunch of things that are now extinct but that were existing and living after the global flood. Why don't we teach, history like that? And especially the fossil evidence of the global flood. It all happened in less than 50 million years because 50 million years would have washed all of the sediment with the fossils into the oceans at the current rate of erosion. So, people don't even know what a million years is. People don't know what a billion years is. And there's no way that you can know anything existed a billion years ago. There's just no way. Because time itself is a fabrication. It's a fabrication that's the result of the creation of matter, which has gravity, which dilates time and distance to limited time and measurable time, limited time and limited distance. In other words, the communication is not instantaneous anymore because of gravity, and distance is not infinite anymore because of gravity, at least where we are. So we exist in an expanded fabrication. The expanded part of the fabrication is from the stretching of space. The space is being stretched and by the black holes around the universe. The galaxies are pulling space into the black holes, So I guess that's what makes the vacuum. Sounds logical to me. And it's also stretching the space. So if you're stretching the space, then you have, that explains the red shift. Anyway, that's what causes our fabrication, is the creation of matter, which has gravity, which dilates time and distance. So I don't know how much noise it's making. But anyway, I'll just go ahead and say that the scientists don't have any evidence for evolution, because if they did have it, they would have presented it by now. So they don't have any evidence because there's no reason for them to hide the evidence if they had it. So they're unable to prove that mindless matter wrote the programming for all the living organisms, all the different living organisms, mind you. It's not just one living organism. They have to come up with written programming for every single living organism. Written programming that's not there for each one, because each one has written programming that no other organism has. Obviously, just looking at them, you should know that. Because each organism is different. It's made to be what it is, and it can't be anything else. It reproduces after its kind, just like the goat herder said, because it doesn't have information to be anything else other than what it was made to be, in order to be. And there's no way it can get any instruction from thin air to be anything else or any other thing. Especially in 6,000 years, which is what the history shows that the world is. It's a little over 6,000 years. But you figure if you've made time and space, if you created the universe and then started to count the days by the rotation of the earth in relation to the sun, then that's when the days are counted. The first day is the creation, and there was darkness on the surface of the earth, and that's when the first day was counted. When God said, "Let there be light," that was on the first day. So there was darkness, there was the creation of the universe, there was darkness covering the surface of the earth, the surface of the deep, obviously what it says, which tells you that there was light elsewhere. Because if darkness covers the surface of the earth, the surface of the deep, that means there was light elsewhere. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light on the first day. And then the rest of the creation. So that's when, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, that's when the creation of time and space was made. Because when you create matter, it causes gravity, and gravity dilates time and distance for things to take place. So as soon as things could take place, then you can have the creation of every living organism there is from the existing elements that were made. From 18 of the most common elements that are essential to life. 18 of the most common elements are absolutely essential to life. Without any one of them, like carbon or phosphorus or nitrogen or anything, we wouldn't exist. And there's an additional equal amount of beneficial elements that are beneficial to life. So it's as if the creation of the universe and the world was the creation of the working parts that are essential for our existence. And you never saw a working part make itself. A working part never exists apart from intent and purpose. Show me an automobile part that made itself, that designed itself. Show me any part, any directed working mechanism that made itself. Everything has to be made specifically for what it does, for what it is and what it does. And we have 18 elements, not to mention the amount of molecules, the number of molecules made from those elements. 17 elements that are absolutely essential for our existence. So in the creation of the heavens and the earth, there was also the creation of the essential working parts for nanotechnology to exist, and so that the elements and molecules and matter could be formed and directed to make every single living organism that there is. It's not complicated. It's just directed with intent and purpose. That's how you have directed working mechanisms. Having a mechanism is one thing. Having a directed working mechanism is another thing altogether. It's a higher level. And this nanotechnology that we consist of is 6,000 years old and not obsolete yet. Just think, it's like every year software becomes obsolete, or every couple of years, every few years, software becomes obsolete, and you got to replace it. You got to come up with something better. Living organisms is nanotechnology with programming and software that has been viable for 6,000 years and going and ongoing, and conceivably could be viable for a couple thousands of years in the future. We're going to have to take better care of ourselves as humans, but it's conceivably viable for, the Bible says, to the thousandth generation, and we've only been through 150 generations, so we got a lot of generations to go, conceivably or possibly, depending on how you view things, but the possibility is there. The potential is there, because the software is self-correcting. When it makes mistakes, it's able to correct itself on several levels, different levels. But eventually, of course, we know it's going to wear out because it can't go on forever. And even the Bible says that the earth itself is going to be worn out. It's going to be worn out, it says, Now, obviously, there's going to be all kind of disease and everything, but as long as we take good care of our planet and ourselves, and eat the right foods, eat real good food, and not mess up our genome too much, we could live maybe for a while, As individuals, we might live to be 100. As humans, we might live for a couple of thousand more years, potentially. But there's just no way that you can get a technology like that. It's higher than any technology that there is. Today I heard somebody argue, I think his name was Will, on Nephilim Free's channel. He said, well, the technology is so high it couldn't possibly have come from intent or purpose. It couldn't have possibly come from a mind, because of the technology's so far above anything that we have. What kind of reasoning is that? What kind of logic is that? That's, you have to bend over backwards to try to deny that you have a creator like that. I mean, it's, we have a maker with infinite wisdom and understanding and infinite power, infinite potential, and he's saying that the technology's too high of a technology for a mind to be behind it, or for a maker to be behind it. Obviously, it's not too high for an infinite maker of everything there is, with infinite wisdom and understanding, and infinite power, infinite potential. But that's the argument that people have to go through when they don't want to accept the truth of having a creator, of having a maker. So wait a minute, I know what I did wrong. I didn't log in. I'm having a live stream without logging in. How's that possible? Anyway, no wonder the thing doesn't work. Watch this. Watch me log in. Oh, I'm not gonna do this. Hold on. Uh-oh, what did I do here? Set up later. No wonder, that makes sense. I'm trying to figure out why I didn't have the live chat. Maybe it's not even working. It's not even broadcasting. How about that? Oh, it seems to be live here. Oh well, it's live anyway. I just didn't even log into it. It's live. It's crazy. Oh well. That's interesting. It's good. I've been talking for all this time. It better be live. So I do have Skype somewhere. Let me see if I can get my Skype address. Okay, what if I can paste it into the chat, see if it works. Okay. Yeah, with the Skype, that means I should be able to connect somebody. If somebody, would I have to open my Skype? I wonder. Let me open my Skype. Okay. Just in case somebody wants to call. There it is. So yeah, the biologists obviously have no argument. They have no evidence for any mechanism whatsoever to make living organisms. They just don't have it. And yet they believe that there is a physical mechanism to put into order a living organism. They believe it because they refuse to believe that they have a maker. That's the extent they will go to. Regardless of what all the evidence shows, they refuse to believe that they have a maker. And they will go to any length to try to convince people to believe, even without the evidence, because it's totally absurd. The math doesn't support it at all. Besides the fact that everything falls apart at a much greater rate than it ever puts itself into directed working order, this just totally, absolutely absurd nonsense, this belief of evolution. And if something is totally false, you can't be teaching kids what is totally false. You got to teach real science, real history, real facts, real genealogies, and we have a lot of genealogies now. We have DNA connecting us all together now, and everybody's doing DNA tests, and we're connecting our families together, and all the families go back to Noah and to his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, which are Semitics, Africans, and European Asians. Of course, Europe is a mixture of Semites, which is Israel, and Asian Japhethites. And we have the two Y chromosomes represented. We have the R chromosome represented there, and the I chromosome represented there, which mine is I. So I'm a Shemite. And some other ones, G, H, I, J. J is the Jews, I is Israel. I don't know how that turned out, but that's the way it turned out, the way they lettered it. Anyway, which is kind of interesting because the lost tribes went out throughout Europe, and the I's ended up in Finland, Scandinavia, and parts of Britain and Scotland, and other parts of Europe as well. And there's different I's too. There's I1, I'm I1, there's I2, there's, it's divided up. But there's GHI, those are Semites. Of course, there's supposed to be an F. We're supposed to be from F, FGHI, J. But that F, there's not, it's kind of sketchy, that F, they're sure there's people from F, but they're probably Shemites too, I would guess. But it's a very small group. And then again, when you come to K, K is a very small group, and then you have K, LMNO, PQ, RS, T, I guess. STU, I don't know, something like that. But and those are all Japhethites. So there's a clear division or distinction between the Africans, the Semites, and the Asians, or European Asians. Even though in Europe they're mixed, there's mixed the Asians with the Semites. But the evidence is coming out. The evidence keeps coming out, and we got archaeological evidence keeps coming out. We have geological evidence keeps coming out, proving that the order of the fossil is not the way they want it to be. And the order of the fossils are the way they were laid down, which you would expect the sea life to be on the bottom, and of course the sea life is mixed throughout the fossil record as well. So you have dinosaurs, extinct dinosaurs, mammals, and sea life, and insects and plants, all mixed up together. That's how you find fossils, is that there's going to be marine life, mammal life, and dinosaurs together. And there's, who knows what we're going to find. Most of what is down there beneath us is not found yet, and eventually it's going to prove the global flood. Eventually genealogies are going to prove the global flood. Eventually historical records are going to prove the global flood. Eventually existing calendars are going to prove the global flood, because they're no older than 5,000 years themselves. And Egypt is Mitzrayim in the Bible. It's not like the Bible doesn't know about Egypt. Abraham went to Egypt twice, I think, and Jacob went to Egypt, Israel went to Egypt, Israel came out of Egypt, and it's referred to as Mitzrayim. So it's not, and of course Abraham is a Sumerian from a Sumerian city. You talk about, the Sumerians this, the Sumerians that, they had a record of flood record this and record of that, and Abraham was a Sumerian, Where do you think they got the idea of a flood? But it just happens that the Bible is more accurate than any record of any other civilization about the global flood. Even though, if you compare the records from all over the world, they have all of the same, or many of the same details, such as 8 people in a world that was full of bad people that got into a boat with the animals, and they sent animals outside to see if it was safe outside. Not every tradition or account of the global flood has all those details, but they all have some of those details or parts of those details, and it's consistent. That information is consistent, and it was 8 people, in throughout every record of the global flood that there's one or more of those details are in there, even whether it's just a boat or whatever. One of those details are part of their story. And usually it's multiple. Often it's multiple or many parts of those details that are listed in the Bible, that are talked about in the Bible. So it's an actual historical event that actually did happen, and it's not a mystery to us. We know, we who are Christians have known this for years, and we're just really annoyed by people making things up and teaching other people's kids a bunch of lies that they made up, that they believed from some uneducated person who thought he was educated, So, it's really annoying for people. And then, well, the most annoying part is that they'll turn around and come after you and say you're teaching lies and you're teaching mythology, when it's the other way around, and which I've proved already in this video that it's the other way around, that evolution is the mythology. Evolution is flat earth mythology. That's what evolution is. It's still better than flat earth. It's made up lies. It's witch doctor, flat earth mythology. That's what it is. That's what your great scientists are pushing, because they don't want to accept the facts. They don't want to believe what the facts are showing. It's okay for people to think what they think. It's not okay to be teaching something that's a flat out lie contrary to the evidence, And it's not okay when they come after Christians and accuse Christians of believing in myths and believing nonsense and being anti-science. No, evolution is anti-science. We are more scientific. The goat herders were more scientific than your evolutionists, than your evolutionism ever was, because none of it is true. So there's that. So I don't know how people can believe such garbage, or believe anything just because somebody said so. Just because somebody wrote a paper saying that evolution happened. And then somebody else wrote a piece of paper and said the same thing, without any evidence. Never any evidence. They're just asserting. History is evidence. Calendars are evidence. Genome is evidence. Geology is evidence. Archaeology is evidence. Evolution has no evidence. It's just this absurd belief that you can get all the different living organisms from no information. It's just total absurdity. It's total nonsense. It's total nonsense. You are not going to get all the different diversity, all the different living organisms from no evidence, from no information. No information is not going to make anything. And even if you have a given set of information, it has to be top down. It's not top down. You want it to be bottom up, so it's bottleneck every imagined step of the way. You can't get the information that's not there. You can't get it. You'll never get it in any amount of time, and it's going to fall apart before it ever puts itself together. Because it falls apart faster than it ever puts itself together, supposedly puts itself together, which it never does put itself together to begin with. It's just total nonsense. And you can't be teaching this to kids. You can't teach it to kids. If you teach it to kids, you're doing a disfavor to humanity. Because lies never do any good to humanity, to humans, to mankind. The truth is what always gets us out of all the predicaments. What brought us out of the Dark Ages was the Bible put into print. When the Bible was put into print, that's what brought us out of the Dark Ages. When the Roman Church was lying to people about what the Bible was saying. They didn't even know what the Bible said themselves because it wasn't in print, whether they could understand or read it. It was in Latin, and nobody understood Latin except a few people, and they hardly knew what it was saying themselves. So how could they teach something that they didn't even understand? But as soon as it was translated and put into print, translating is one thing, that's great, but you have to copy it and recopy it and recopy it and recopy it, and that information didn't get out. It wasn't a efficient means of communication, making copies of an English translation of the Bible. But as soon as Gutenberg invented the printing press specifically to make copies of the Bible, that's what brought us out of the Dark Ages into the Industrial Age, into the Information Age, into the where we're at now. The Industrial Age, Information Age, and everything we have now. OBS is the result of Gutenberg printing the Bible in English. You can take that to the bank. Everything that cell phones is a result of not only Larry Klayman, but who sued Bell Telephone, but as a result of Gutenberg putting the English Bible into print. Well, the German Bible, I guess it was. He put he put the Bible, printed it in German, I suppose, and then later it was printed in English because Gutenberg was German. So maybe it was printed in German first, but I don't know. Eventually it was printed in English, and it brought us out of the Dark Ages. So we have all this to thank for is from the truth, from facts, from information. And we need to stop teaching lies. We have to stop teaching lies because it's not taking us anywhere. It's not going to get us anywhere teaching lies. Just because you don't want to accept the truth or somebody doesn't want to accept the truth. That's no excuse to be teaching lies just because you don't like what the evidence shows. You don't like where the information leads. I find it amusing that the physicists and such, astronomers and such, are doing these equations, all these complicated equations, and trying to figure out relativity and everything, and tie it into a theory of everything, and they get frustrated because the answer always comes out to infinity, and even multiple infinity. Whichever way you look is infinity. So they get all frustrated. Well, this can't be. How can this be? Well, that's what the evidence is showing, is what the facts are. The facts are is that there is infinite potential that made everything that is. Everything regresses back to infinite wisdom, understanding, counsel, strength, infinite power, infinite potential of every kind, intelligence and otherwise. So even the math supports what the evidence shows, that everything comes from an infinite maker, infinite eternal maker. And eternal is infinite. It's multiple infinities. Infinite time, infinite distance, infinite densities, infinite, everything's infinite. All you have to do is follow the evidence where it's leading. It's not complicated. And again, if I'm from the Amazon and I can see all the stuff that I'm telling you, and the goat herders could see it, and they didn't have half of the evidence that we have, and they already told you that God is infinite in wisdom and understanding and power and strength, then scientists should acknowledge that and accept it. And another thing, this is one of my pet peeves that I will always harp on. If you want to be a scientist, you have to read the Bible, you have to study the Bible, you have to learn the Bible, you have to understand the Bible in order to get a grasp on what is, on science, on what is. Because if you don't study the Bible, you aren't going to have a clue as to what way the things are. I mean, it'll throw you off in geology. It'll throw you off in human history. It'll throw you off in everything if you don't know and understand biblical history. The Bible covers thousands of years of history, human records. Thousands of years. And in those thousands of years, there were things alluded to like eternity and an eternal maker. An eternal maker being born in Bethlehem, no less, of Judah. So all this was spoken of thousands of years ago. And they didn't even have the information that we have. But they had some information. They had historical, they were there at the time of things occurring, such as the flood, such as the biblical events, such as the crossing of the Red Sea and all the stuff. They were there. And the resurrection of Jesus, like I touched on, I guess it was yesterday or the day before, about the Roman soldiers. The story they put out was not that Jesus didn't rise from the grave, but they said, or not that they had found the body of Jesus, it was that they hadn't found the body of Jesus because they said somebody stole it. And of course, if that was true, they would have been executed immediately. So they didn't even go looking for him because they didn't have a body to look for. So they made up a story. They had to make up a story, an absurd story, saying that the disciples stole the body. And the disciples didn't even know that the body was stolen. They didn't even know it was stolen, or it wasn't there. Of course, it wasn't stolen. It's just that he was resurrected. But they would have said something else other than that the body was stolen. They would have produced the body. Of course, anybody could have produced a body and said, here it is, here's the body, but they couldn't do that. And they knew they couldn't do it, so they didn't even look for him, for his body. Which is, you know, speaks volumes. So yeah, the scientists are just not able to support their belief in evolution. It's really pathetic. And if they wanted to convince us, they would come up with some evidence, but they don't have any evidence to show us anything. There's nothing they can tell us. There's nothing, absolutely nothing they can tell us. Because they don't have any evidence of evolution. If they did, they would have showed us the evidence of evolution. Show us the evidence of writing instruction that's not there. You can't show us because it's absurd. It's totally absurd. And you're millions of years, you don't even know what millions of years are. 50 million years would have washed all the sediment layers with all the fossils into the ocean. And they're all still there. And we're finding more and more fossils. Now we're finding soft dinosaur tissue. So either those things lived after the global flood, or they were buried at the time of the global flood, and it was only less than 5,000 years ago. Because how else would you have soft dinosaur tissue and blood cells and filopodia and osteocytes and blood cells and hemoglobin and all that stuff? You know, that's not millions of years. You don't even know what millions of years are, because millions of years would have washed everything away. You know, you don't want to go by the facts, so you just believe a lie. But you can't teach kids a lie. You can't teach students a lie. You can't teach anyone a lie. If you don't have the evidence, you can't teach it. So stop teaching it. Stop teaching it, or come up with the evidence for evolution, which you never will, because it's just absurd. You'll never get instruction that's not there. Never. Never. Ever. You can't do it. It doesn't exist. It doesn't happen. So stop teaching it. It's just totally absurd. I like this video here. This video's of an owl at night. It's an owl at night. In this one particular place, this one video camera caught the owl. It caught a bobcat and maybe even a bear. I might have to turn the volume up on the bear if I can. Well, you're not going to be able to hear it anyway, but unless you turn up the volume. Anyway, so we have the same, and it's in the same location. It's just a different cut, but it's in the same location. You'll see the same bush, only the bush is going to be off to the right with a bear. So that's the owl. This is the bobcat. Looks like a lion. It's going to cut to the right real quick. Right now, it cut to the right. There it goes to the right, I think. So it looks like a lion, except you can see a stubby tail. If you didn't see the stubby tail, you might think it was a lion. But it's real quick. shows his face real quick, and then he goes off to the right. But it's amazing how, you know, we complain we can't see at night, but the cameras have to pick up, they have to be able to detect photons, you know, and just the ability to detect photons is an amazing feat. And our eyesight detects photons, but not as well as some animals are able to detect photons. And they can see with a limited amount of light. But of course, it's not in color, because the wavelengths that we need, or that we're seeing, the wavelengths of light that we're seeing don't cover the whole entire spectrum. At least we're not being able to pick up the whole entire spectrum of light. So just any photons are good, I guess. So that was the owl, the bobcat, and this is what might be a bear. A bear. I'll try to be quiet so I can hear him crunching on something. Crunch. Crunch. I don't know, his eyes look awfully far apart. I mean, it might be a deer, but I don't know what a deer would be crunching on. And the eyes are pretty far apart. I mean, see the bush to the right? See the owl's head? The owl's head is about as big as the eyes are apart, you know. Let me go back to the owl. Okay. Let's say, like, the eyes are about as far apart as the two tree branches there. Okay, it'd be the ones up here. Yeah. The eyes are about as far apart as the owl's head. So what would that be? Anyway, I'm just trying to get a picture of the bear. I didn't get a picture of the bear yet, but I know he's around. Anyway, I heard him growl the other day too when I was over there. I started following the fence line, and it was in the direction of the growl. So I just calmly turned around and walked the other way. No, because I was about as far away from the bear as I was from my cabin, so I turned around and walked back to the cabin. I just, want to be polite to the bear. That's all. I don't want to encroach on his walkings or whatever he's doing. This may or may not be a smaller bobcat. It appears out of nowhere and jumps. Anyway, I guess it's about all I have for my rant today. Is that the scientists don't have any evidence of evolution, and they need to stop teaching evolution because they don't have any evidence whatsoever. They never did have any evidence. All they had was a belief. A witch doctor, fantasy, mythological belief. A flat earth, witch doctor, mythological, fantasy belief. That's what they have. That's what evolution is. That's all it is. A flat earth belief, a baseless belief with no evidence whatsoever. And they need to stop teaching it because you're destroying humanity with your lies. The people hardly have a chance as it is, and you're just making it worse for humanity by teaching lies, by confusing people as to the history of mankind and the history and calendars and genealogies and archaeology and geology and everything, and biology and physics and astrophysics, and then they got this thing called a astrobiologist. What's an astrobiologist? Now see, this is the extent that your lies have caused. That there is such a thing as an astrobiologist. What's an astrobiologist studying? Tell me what an astrobiologist is studying. There is no biology in space for him to study. This is the extent that the lies go, that the lies take people. You have NASA looking for aliens. NASA is looking for aliens. You have scientists being given money to look for aliens. Scientific probes are sent and given money. They're being funded for the purpose of finding life, for finding aliens. So what happens if you go there and no life is found? Then it's a big letdown. It's a big let. Everybody's expecting life. Oh, we're going to have life. There has to be life. There's going to be life. There's going to be aliens. It's aliens. And then there is nothing. Even if there is, life has to be directed, has to be ordered. Life on Earth is ordered. If life on Earth is ordered, any life elsewhere has to be ordered too. Has to be directed. Has to be concatenated. It has to be given information, given instruction, given a purpose with intent. And the intent is to give all the glory to the maker of everything that there is. And people just want to glorify the creature rather than the creator. They want to glorify the material rather than the maker of the matter. You know, it's not complicated. You just have to tell the truth. And if you don't tell the truth, you're lying, and you can't lie to kids. You can't lie to students. You can't lie to people. Oh, here we go. Sorry, Wildheart. I got going on a rant. The evidence is the fossil record and DNA. Oh, here we go. I'm not too late. An astrobiologist is a person who studies the possibility of life beyond Earth. Yeah, but I want to know what life is he studying? What life is an astrobiologist studying? That's what I want to know. Of course, I'm laughing at it, but that's another thing. We won't know unless we look. Wildheart, there are many scientists who confirm the biblical accounts. That's true. Science has confirmed the Bible to me. Yeah, the Bible is full of science. I would have thought that was more up to historians than scientists, says Wildheart. Yeah, but there are many scientific statements in the Bible, one of which is reproducing after its kind, which are borne out to be true, according to science. And everything coming from an infinite maker. I just went through the whole thing. I'm going to have to repeat myself all over again. Yeah, I just go back and watch the whole video, Wildheart. I know you. It's not a very good thing to tell a person to go back and watch the video, but I just went through a whole bunch of evidence, scientific evidence for creation. But you could probably catch it somewhere else too, but for that matter. Anyway, I've been going on for a while. I've been going off for a while, about an hour now. But I've been enjoying myself anyway. If somebody wants to call in Skype, I might be able to put them on. The Skype, I left a link there. I just click on the link. I don't even know how it works. You just click on the link and follow the instructions, I guess, and maybe it'll call me, and then maybe you'll show up, and maybe I'll put you on. Okay, that's one raccoon. That's one mischievous raccoon. There's another one. But this is not too spectacular. Yeah. I think Wildheart should be pretty well educated by now. As many videos as he watches, apart from Genesis getting older creation. The order of creation is okay. The heavens and the earth were made first, and darkness covered the surface of the earth, and then, which means there was light elsewhere, and then there was light seen on earth. So the account is from the perspective of being on earth. And it said darkness covered the surface of the deep, the surface of the earth was covered by darkness, and then there was light on the first day. But nobody was there to see it, but that was the account of the first day. So the heavens and the earth were made, darkness covered the surface of the earth, and there was light on earth on the first day. There was evening and morning, one rotation of the earth in relation to the sun. Evening and morning, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. probably about the same speed as the day that we have today. Here's 2 raccoons just to be more interesting. Bad video settings. Please use key frame frequency of 4. I don't know. Yeah, well, I think I didn't log in. That's what's wrong. I can't see my chat or anything. That's what happened. Oh, I want to play my my video again, if I can find it. Hold on a second. See if I can find my video. I was watching a news report today of the Russian plane that crashed, hit a flock of birds and crash landed, like what happened here in the Hudson River. Of Captain Sully. They're saying the captain is just like Captain Sully. He saved the aircraft, and he landed without power in a cornfield. But anyways, the problem is I gotta find where I put the feed. It's not here. Otherwise I have to do a feed again. It's not here. Not here. Not there. Wait a minute, what's this? Is this it? Oh, that ain't it. Oh, it was on the Crow, okay. Yeah, it was on the Crow. Anyway. Let me see if I can get this. I got this little feed here. Anyways, I responded to this German YouTube video, and they gave me a heart and highlighted my comment because I said you don't have to translate the sound of the birds hitting the engine. And they gave me a heart and a highlighted comment. I just thought it was neat. So let me go ahead and play this again, if I can.
Just after takeoff, I heard a sound like...
There was a deathly silence.
So I said you didn't have to translate the bird sound. And they gave me a heart and a highlighted comment. That was the sound of the birds hitting the engines. Let me see if anybody liked that video clip. I thought it was good, but I laughed by myself anyway. Oh well. Yeah, that was pretty good? Okay. I thought it was pretty good. I'll play it again. I played it a whole bunch of times already.
Just after takeoff, I heard a sound like...
There was a deathly silence on the plane. Everyone was just awaiting their fate.
That was pretty
Passengers
good.
say they had no warning from the crew that the plane was...
That was pretty good because they didn't have to translate that. Anyway, that's my entertainment. I don't know, I'm getting kind of bored, I guess. So I'll go ahead and close down. Maybe somebody else can open up a live stream or something too.